Okay, this is Vince Russo back with the Swerve. This is the video portion of the interview with Medusa, and you're gonna keep quiet over there for a second, and you're gonna let me embarrass you. Okay, all you VIP members, this is what you're paying for. Look at her. You get to sit here and you get to. I'm telling you. Listen, I don't blow the smoke. I'm from New York. You've known me for a long time. You look absolutely stunning, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm not going to say anything anymore because I know it's going to embarrass you. Let's pick it up at WCW. Okay. Now
There you go, being encomiastic. You know what that word is? You
I have
don't,
no
then
idea.
better look it up.
Okay. Now WCW. You just put in 3 years in Japan. Can you tell me, prior to going to Japan, now you put the 3 years in, now when you come back to WCW and you begin a second career in the States, how are you differently, both professionally and personally, because of the experience in Japan?
I'm a little hesitant. I was a little scared going into WCW because it was the next biggest federation next to AWA. AWA gave me the opportunity to have that experience, but WCW was happening. And of course, you had WWF at the time. I don't remember how I even got into the WCW that first time. I believe I did get a phone call right away. They heard that I was coming back from Japan, and so I was a little nervous. Japanese experience, and I had the American experience, and I know I wanted to correlate and put it all together and bring it back to the US and be this huge sensation, but however, that didn't take off right away. I'm almost blank on how they used me right away. I think they did. They think they did start having me wrestle right away, and they saw what kind of wrestling it was. I think they got a little scared by it because it was very stiff. It was very man-like. I was serious, and I mean, my finishing move was the German suplex, for Christ's sake. I mean, who did that? And I was really excited, and I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted women to have a huge part in the WCW.
Were they open to that at the time?
I believe so, or else they wouldn't have asked me to come in. I believe Jim Ross was there at the time, and Missy Hyatt was there. Missy Hyatt wasn't really a woman's wrestler, but I did have a huge feud with her. I thought Missy was the most beautiful woman ever in pro wrestling when I saw her, and I'm not sure. There was some other women. I can't even tell you who it was, who I was wrestling, unless you remember. I don't.
Well, I know a couple of things I want to point out during that time. It was 91 to 93. And again, it just fascinates me, just some of the greats that you worked with. And I mean, unfortunately, a lot of them aren't with us today, Rick Rude. You managed him for a little while there when you first came back to WCW. Can you give us a little insight into your relationship with him?
Rick was great. It was Rick Rude and I actually went to Japan, and I managed him in Japan. I didn't wrestle over there with Rick, but I did manage him. And I got a huge response just being a manager. I think I got a bigger response than Rick, and he kept saying, "Deucey, you got to step away. Deucey, get away from me. You're getting a bigger applause than me. Deucey, go back to the dressing room." I was like, oh, God, okay. So we traveled together, and we also traveled together with Paul E.
Right.
When Paul E was there. And that, I would have to say, was my most memorable, awesome little gimmick, that Paul E. and the whole Dangerous Alliance. It was so much fun. There was one thing with Rick Rude while we were in the car. I'll never forget it. I remember my feet were up on the dashboard, and he would sit in the back. He would never ride up front with Paulie driving. He would cuss Paul out the way he drove, and then I would have to sit up front, and there was other things going on, but I won't explain that right now. But I would have my feet up on the dash, and all I remember him saying every time we traveled, he would say, "Deucey, you got some long Deucey, get your feet down. You got some long ass toes." So, I mean, yeah. But otherwise, as far as working with him, he was serious. He was serious. He was a great worker. I learned a lot being a woman's manager, watching his matches and watching other people's matches, and him even speaking to me to get involved in the high spots at certain times that I would screw up. How could you screw up when you have one thing to do? But I would do it sometimes because I was nervous. But yeah, that's a little thing with Rick.
You know, I got to ask you, I got to ask you a question too. We're talking about 1992 here. So we're talking about 20 plus years. Now we all know, obviously he's the darling of the internet, but we all know that Paul Lee went on to have a great mind, in the wrestling business. ECW still does today. Did you see any of that back then when you were working closely with him?
Paul?
Yeah.
The mouth?
Yeah.
Paul, the one that could take any situation and cut a promo about it. I mean, my God, he was fabulous to be around. He inspired me with his promos and his enthusiasm. He had a mind like a cat, 9 lives. He would always think of new angles and things to do. He would help me with my promos, actually. He was so fun to work with the man and woman situation when we were doing the wrestling and beating each other up, and him firing me on TV and me beating the crap out of him. And what a huge angle that was. It was the funnest time of my career, I would say, in WCW.
Now, how did you make the transfer at this point? Because in 1993, you go to the WWE. How does that come about?
I think I left WCW due to management changing and getting lost in the shuffle. Story of my life through wrestling. And the contracts weren't being offered like they were at the time. At that time, when I first went there, I believe my first contract was $75,000 at that time.
Wow.
And that was the other big one that first it was my $800 first paycheck from AWA. And now I got my first huge contract with WCW, which was $75,000 for a woman. Though I learned later what the men and women were getting. And so when I did leave WCW, that's when I did get a call, sort of. I was dating Greg Valentine at the time, and everyone would call us the tortoise and the hare for some reason. But for some reason we worked, and it was a great relationship. And I can honestly say, I think when I left the WCW at that time, I took a hiatus of about 6 to 8 months off and just chilled and figured out what I wanted to do, if I wanted to go back to WCW or do independence or whatnot. And I think I may have done a few independents at that time. But Greg was really good friends with some people up in WWE, and nor did I know this. And he said, did you ever think about going to WWF? I'm like, are you kidding? That's like God's palace. I would love to go there. But I said, they'll never have somebody like me. He goes, how can you say that? You're the best woman wrestler that we've seen, and that's going on right now. And I said, well, thanks, probably because you're dating me. And so my guard has always been up with everybody through this whole career of wrestling. I don't know why. And so if it wasn't for Greg the Hammer Valentine, I would have never, ever have been in the WWF. He called Pat Patterson and told him about this woman, and that was me. And then I got a call, probably that couple days, and spoke to Pat and Vince, and they flew me up there, and we spoke, and right away I was hired.
Do you know what's
So
you know what's fascinating to me? And again, this is like people do not understand in the last 20 years how far women's wrestling has come. And this is why I say you paved the way when it wasn't what it is today. But I found fascinating, you know, you wound up winning the WWF women's title in 1993. Do you know that the women's title was vacant for 3 years before you won it in 1993? That fact alone is just unbelievable to me. There wasn't a women's champion in the biggest federation in the United States in 3 years. And you know, and again, when you left, it was vacant for another 3 years before the next champion came along, I think in 98. So, I mean, to me, that is just incredible when you look at the last 20 years. But I want to go back to when you first signed with them. Tell me a little bit, because, again, this, you know, I hate to use the term, but I have to use the term here with you. What a set of balls you had. I mean, I'm sorry. I can't put this any other way. Explain to me about the use of the name Medusa when you first went to the WWF.
Well, I'm glad you're getting so enthusiastic about it, because it was a great, like, pivotal moment. It was the first time in history. You know, Vin, talking to you, I've realized and come to here thinking that there's been a lot of pivotal moments in my career. It's kind of like this big rainbow where I started here and was going for the pot of gold and bridged everything. I think I opened up the doors in so many different levels and opportunities, and I'm not looking for a drum roll, you know, a drum roll for that. I am just thankful that it always takes something or somebody to do that, to give opportunity of life. And I'm thank you. I'm glad that you feel that I've been so much of that. So to get back to the name, as we explained earlier, that the name Medusa, when I first went into pro wrestling, I knew that I needed a name, one name, something American when I went over to Japan. So I said Medusa, M-A-D-U-S-A, made in the USA. So I've been that all of these years through my independence in WCW and AWA. And so when my opportunity came to WWF and I got that phone call and I was on the phone with Vince, that he said, "So what do you think about the name Medusa?" I said, I love it. It's going to be great. Can you imagine M-A-D-U-S-A, made in the USA, and everything you do with it, the red, white, and blue, you know, red, white, and blue girl, all-American girl next door. And so he goes, "Yeah, okay. So, you know, contract processing, we need to take over the name. You give us the name, you get a contract." And I went, wait a minute. I gave up my name, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I would own the rights to your name." I said, "Mr. McMahon, I trademarked that name and I worked so hard for it. I can't give it up." Silent. And I went, "Oh shit, I just lost my opportunity. There I go. Balls in my mouth. Way to go, Medusa, Deborah." And so I went, "Oh, damn, I just blew this." He goes, "You know, Pat Patterson and Greg talk very highly of you. So why don't we come up with a name?" I go, "Really? Okay, let's come up with another name. We'll just, you know, put Medusa aside." And okay. And he said, okay. It was his idea. It was amazing. So I thought, oh my gosh, I got 2 opportunities. This is a great guy. I didn't know anything about really the organization except for what Greg said. And, you know, it was all good. And Vince was coming across like God. So I said, okay, so we came up with the name together. We actually did on the phone, Alundra, it was Titania or something. I don't remember the first choice of name, but it was too close to Titan. Remember Titan Sports or something like that?
Titan Sports, yep.
And so we came up with Alundra Blayze. I don't know, but that's what we came up with, and that's what we went with. So he owns the rights and the name and everything to Alundra Blayze, and I got to keep Medusa. Thank you, Vince.
But you know what? Here's the thing again. We got to look at that point in time, in 1993, again, fast forward 20 years later. Listen, if that would have happened today, he would have hung up the phone on you and say, this girl's a lunatic. Thank you, but no thank you. And just gone through his Rolodex and come up with the next girl. Back in 1993, there was nobody like you out there. So if Vince, the title had been vacant for 3 years. So if Vince wanted to get back into women's wrestling, at the end of the day, you really held all the playing cards at that time.
But on just take Vince's side, I did not know that though, really. So I was just being innocent and just saying, and working with it and saying, okay. And knowing that the title was vacant for 3 years, I thought this is a good opportunity again for me to go in and represent the women and show them the new case of women, this new showcase of women, what we're really about, bringing the Japanese together, bringing the American together, and showing them women can wrestle with a little sexism.
Well, you just wait a minute.
There's nothing wrong with a woman looking good like today. The women look great in WWE.
Wait a minute. I gotta stop you. You're skimming over way too much. You got to stop with not giving yourself the credit you deserve. You brought Bull Nakano in from Japan to work with in the United States. As wrestling fans in the United States, we had never seen that before. So now we're probably seeing a brand of the best female wrestler in our country and the best female wrestler in their country, something we had never seen before. All of a sudden, if you're a fan of the WWF, you're sitting back, and for the first time on a national level, you're recognizing women's wrestling. Don't just skim over that. That's a pretty big deal.
It was, and thanks to Vince wanting to open up the women's division again and giving me the opportunity to do so. The only way we could do that is because we didn't have women that wrestled like I did. So we needed to bring the Japanese women over, and thank goodness that Bull Nakano was interested in doing so. Now we had, when I believe that I did have a tournament, and I wrestled Heidi Lee Morgan, which is the greatest woman. I love her to death, for the tournament, and I beat the tournament with her, I truly believe. And also there was Leilani Kai. Don't forget Leilani Kai, Judy Martin from that era with Sherry Martel that was still wrestling, and I would wrestle them. I also can say that I wrestled Moolah. Now, what women of today in our generation can say they actually wrestled Moolah and some of the women of today? I am so blessed and lucky that I am history, sort of. You know what I'm saying? And so still kind of skimming across, thank you for the great compliment, but I wanted to make more than that. I wanted to make more than a difference. I wanted women to be looked at as serious and pretty, all in one. But yet I noticed a change. There was something happening, and I didn't want to be this bra and panty show circus. I mean, I thought it looked okay. I could wear a pair of panties and a bra and thought I could, think I could look really good in it. But that's not what I was about. I was more serious about it. I know wrestling wasn't real. I know it's entertainment at this point, but I didn't want to jump around in mud and panties and bras. That just wasn't me. And again, I saw my time coming to a pinnacle again, and I saw the change, and I needed to make a change.
Well, let's go back, because from what I can gather, in 1995, this is like December of 95, people don't understand this and really know this, but I kind of know this because this is where I kind of got involved. Things weren't really great on a financial level for WWF at that time in about the mid-90s. And this is one of the reasons. Now, was your contract not renewed at that point? Did you decide to go look for greener pastures or something new? But what came down in December of 95 when you left WWF?
Well, since you put it that way. I was in a time with WWF when they were going through some horrific times. And what I gathered and what I remember is Vince was going through some IRS scandals. And I believe he was going through the big steroid epidemic of being almost shut down. Vince was almost being shut down at that point. And in that part, that window that I was in WWF, all of that was going on. And I was trying to make my mark, which was unfortunate. So J.J. Dillon was there at the time. I believe he was the right-hand man for Vince. I'm not sure, but I do remember this, that when things were getting really tough and bad, again, you said that the women's division were on hiatus for 3 years before and 3 years after me. And a lot of people think it's because I trashed the title in the can, maybe. But I truly believe that they were overcoming an adversity, that all the stuff that Vince was trying to keep his head above water in, and that was all of those accusations that were coming towards the WWF. And so the main thing that they needed to do is start cutting budget. And that would be, the first thing to do would be the women's division. So JJ called me a heads up and said,
Wait. Can I stop you right there? Why is that the first thing to do? Because you cannot tell me that the women division isn't drawing, the women division isn't the only different thing on the show, and the women's division wasn't something that people were interested in. So why does that become the first thing to cut?
Because the way women are promoted in the marketing, it would probably be different, and they probably would not be the first to go. However, back then, we were still first, second, third on the card, and we were probably one of the first decisions to let go. And they needed to reorganize the whole organization. Now, this is just my opinion. I wasn't told this, but just from what I've been through with them and receiving the phone call from JJ and then receiving the letter, and I took it as, okay. I wasn't even angry. I wasn't even mad, but I was pretty devastated in a way that, again, I felt violated as a woman in this industry, that I worked my ass off for so long and I gave so much, not just to Vince, but to everything, that I would be, again, as a woman in the business at that time, to be let go. And I felt I gave everything. And I was probably devastated in that way. But then, again, my way of thinking and who I am, I just looked at the circumstances and said, hell, if I was him, I'd have to cut too and reorganize. And that's just the way it is. And that's me. I was, that's it. But I will also tell you this. It goes deeper than that. And I am not going to explain all of that here. And I have written a book, as I told you, and someday it will be published, and it's all in there. It's not a tattletale book about me getting released or my relationships or my ups and downs. It's not a tattletale book. It's about my life, and it's not about anybody else. It's about me and people that happen to be in it at that time.
Well, let me ask you this. You describe yourself as being devastated, and I can totally understand that. All the work you did to develop, the women's division in the 2 or 3 years that you were there, when it was non-existent for 3 years before, I can totally understand that. But now, at that point, having gone through this, do you feel, mentally, are you done with wrestling, or now are you looking at WCW as a viable option to go back to?
At that time,
yeah,
I was comfortable. I was okay. I wasn't thinking about anything, really. I was thinking about just chilling and figuring out what I'm going to do. Maybe pick up that nursing degree again that I that I left for $5 a match back in the day. So I don't know. But I remember I was actually just at the house and received a phone call from Eric Bischoff and asked if I was interested in coming back to WCW because things have changed. They're, 3-4 years now. He's in charge. And I days. Eric and I started at the same time. Mm-hmm. He was a gopher boy back in the AWA. He used to pick up the FedExes for Vern. So we've come a long way together, and I trusted him, and it paid off. So my second stint, I finally got a better contract with WCW. And when he called and said, "Hey, Deuce, why don't you come back? Why don't you come home?" I was like, "Why? What do you got?" And he said, "I'll offer you this much, 2-year contract, and you still got that title?" I go, "What title?" He goes, "WWF." I said, "Of course I do." I said, "They let me go, still being the women's champion, and I still have possession of the belt, but that's, that's theirs." He goes, "Do you still have it, though?" I go, "Yes, I have it." He goes, "Well, why don't you come to Monday Night Nitro and bring that belt with you?" I said, "Okay, but it's, don't try anything stupid, Eric." And he said, "Okay." So that Monday Night Nitro, I got on there, and he came to me and spoke to me in my dressing room and said, "Deuce, we want you to do an interview." And I said, "Okay, great, promo, love it. First time back, right? Talk about coming back and women's wrestling and how we're going to change the world." He goes, "No, I want you to take that WWF title, come out, shoot a promo." I believe Heenan and Eric, and there was a pro football player there.
Steve McMichael.
McMichael, that's it, yeah. And they were all doing the commentary. He goes, "Why don't you just come up to the desk while we're cut your promo, bring the belt with you, and pick up the trash. We'll have a trash can there. Just cut a promo and tell them how you feel and drop it in the trash." I go, "Oh, okay, it's entertainment. That sounds all right. I better get the belt back because I'm going to have to give that to Vince." He goes, "No problem." I said, "Okay." And that's exactly how I thought, entertainment, it'll get a small pop, no big deal. Hellfire, Vin. That's probably the most freaking thing that's talked about till this day is that damn belt in the trash can.
Listen, I got to ask you this, and we have
there's another pair of balls that I grew.
Yeah, we have to talk about this for a minute.
Thought about doing. It was just that Eric asked me to do it. It was my job. I was under contract, or else he said I can just find my ass out. What do you do when you're a woman in this position and you didn't get that much recognition? It was hard to get a damn contract, and I'd be damned if I was going to do any extracurricular activity to keep my damn job because I was not that way.
I'm interrupting you again. I'm cutting you off here. Okay. First of all, for you to sit there, can I talk for a minute? For you to sit there and actually think that you have to defend what you did. Let me tell the story. Let me put the Vince Russo spin on it. Okay. Yeah. First of all, you go to WCW. You're working for Eric Bischoff. Okay. Eric is the sharpest knife in the drawer. Okay, and that's what Eric does best. Yeah. At that point in time, Eric is looking to put himself on the map with the WWE. He's now running WCW. Eric Bischoff only has one thing and one thing only in mind. He's gonna be bigger than Vince McMahon. That's all Eric Bischoff. And you know what? I think that's a phenomenal, great attitude. I really do. Okay. So now the WWE champion leaves with the belt. Okay. Eric sees an opportunity for that holy crap moment that everybody is going to be talking about. Okay. He asks you to do that. He's the employer. You're the employee. You do what you're told and you do it. First of all, the set of balls is unfreaking believable to me that you did that. Okay. Unbelievable to me, especially being a woman, being in the spot that you were in. again, whether you realize it or not, setting the tone and setting an example for women for years and years and years to come, to have a mind of their own and be able to think on their own and not be afraid of consequences of the good old boys club. Forget all that, okay? The date was December 18th, 1995, okay? That right there was the official start. That one act that you did was the official start of the boom of the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWE, where every man, woman, and child in the wrestling business made more money during that period, prior to and since, than ever in the history of the business. And you know what? If you A, wouldn't have done what your boss told you to do, or B, would have been hesitant or afraid to do it, you know what? The way history revealed itself, that may have never happened. So, like, I'm sorry for you to sit there and feel you have one ounce to defend. You're absolutely out of your mind. Austin and The Rock and DX and NWO and everything that followed came off of that probably 45-second promo that you cut. And if anything, you need to be taking all the credit in the world for that, not just for women, for the boys as well, and for paving the way and just doing something that really was, probably one of the top 3 memorable moments in the history of wrestling. You can't look at that any other way.
Well,
you can go now.
Well, gee, thanks. Again, thanks for the floor. Well, good luck on that, trying to tell all the guys that that was the beginning and the reason of the Attitude Era. I think you're going to have a few black eyes on that one. However, I'm not defending. I'm only defending a very small part that if I did not do my job, I wouldn't have a contract. And again, I was just like any male wrestler. I was the breadwinner and I had to pay my bills. I had to do my things. So I was thinking it's entertainment. It'll give it a pop. And yes, I needed to do it. And I did it. And it was a great move. And yes, you're correct about Eric wanting to be the #1 in the spotlight. And he did. They carried it over. I mean, the whole thing right now with Medusa coming over with the belt and everybody else following, I mean, that was the biggest time and one of the biggest ratings with WCW.
Well, let me tell you this. When you say about, too many people wouldn't agree with that, and I get black eye. Do you really believe that for 1 second? Do you really not believe that every freaking wrestler who'd be afraid to say that because of they wouldn't want it to get back to Vince? Do you honestly believe in their heart of hearts that they don't think that was the greatest thing that ever happened?
Well, I can tell you, you're the only person that's ever told me that. I take that back. I've rekindled a few friend relationships with wrestlers that I used to wrestle with back in the WWF. And I mean, I'm glad I have. And do you know that I never knew that the men had that much respect for me? I didn't know that. I thought I was just looked at it as a piece of eye candy and just another person, but no one would tell me that. And do you know what it's like going through 18 years of wrestling as a woman and no one telling you that you're good and they just let you do what you do? And now after 32 years in my entertainment business, I finally rekindled with a few and I'm thinking, you are flipping sitting here now with me and you're just telling me this? Thank you. And that's great, but I sure in the hell could have used it back then is what I'm thinking.
And
I realize that they respected me as a wrestler, and maybe they do. Maybe a lot of them won't say that was a great thing to do. But I will tell you, there's another story about that whole deal, and why I know it's the truth of the blood that runs so deeply in Mr. McMahon's veins that it did bother him. And that story is told in my book. And it did to a point. And I did not realize that it did bother Vince, except for this one time in this incident that I had to come to Jesus, talk with myself, and realize, holy shit, this probably really bothered this person. And God, if I
Yeah,
could take
but
it back, I would.
but I don't know what the
I
story
didn't
is.
intentionally say, hey, I'm going to do this to hurt Vince.
Yeah,
Hell no, I would never do that. Vince helped me out a lot. No, Vince helped me out a lot when I was with WWF at the time. Vince was a great employer. He never did me any wrong, except I thought it was kind of shitty to let, first thing go, let a woman go that, we all feel that we pour our hearts out to this federation. We always want to be treated great, but but he had to do what he had to do. But I mean, my proof I have is he was bothered by it.
Well, yeah, well, first of all, like I don't know what proof you have, and you want to save that for your book, and that's great. I'll tell you what the proof in the pudding is. Eric Bischoff one-upped them and outsmarted them. It's that simple.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what the bother was. But
of course it is.
I am the repercussion of that because I am the actual person that did it. So, you know what I find irony is, there's some irony in it. It's to this day I get asked, Deuce, you'll never get asked to Hall of Fame. I'm like, okay, so what? Deuce, do you really think you're going to go back to WWE? And I'm thinking, I'm 50 years old. Do I really want to be thrown around the mat right now? No. Could I kick some of their asses? Probably. But that's not what the bother is. It's the question of, why is this still the number one thing spoke about, and why? But like you said, it was history, so I guess it'll always be talked about.
It's the number one thing spoken about because you had the balls to do it. You don't see stuff like that happening. Don't you understand that? There are very few moments in wrestling history when something like that would ever take place. Vince is, okay, you're not going to go into the Hall of Fame because Vince McMahon won't allow it, because he allowed Eric Bischoff to one-up him, and his ego cannot take that. Again, hold on for a second. You got me all excited. I lost my earpiece.
Okay, so he upped
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So he upped him.
Don't interrupt me. I'm on a roll.
I know.
I have nothing in the world again. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame for a second, okay? I worked with Sonny. I got nothing in the world against this Sonny at all. The fact that a Sonny is in the Hall of Fame and not you, that's like putting a bench warmer in the Baseball Hall of Fame before Babe Ruth. It's an absolute joke. Everybody knows it's an absolute joke. Okay, and the fact that you're not in there because Vince got one-upped by Eric Bischoff and his ego couldn't handle it, and at the end of the day, you were an employee doing what your boss told you to do. That's an absolute joke. You're in my Hall of Fame. You're in everybody else's Hall of Fame that knows what you brought to the wrestling business.
But that's all that matters, and it is what it is. And you know what? I won't lose any sleep over it, but when and if it ever were to happen, I'll definitely take a limo in the waste management truck and bring my belt with me.
Well, you know what? It's not only you. The whole listen, I'm all for the Hall of Fame because I think all these wrestlers from the past, I think they should be revered. And if one night you could put all these guys up on a pedestal, I think that's absolutely great. And I love the idea of it. But if you're going to pick and choose, who's going to go in and who's not going to go in because of, issues like this, okay, Chyna's not going to be in the Hall of Fame because she dated Triple H before he married Stephanie McMahon. The Scott Steiner and the Steiner brothers aren't going to be in the Hall of Fame because everybody was scared to death of Scott Steiner. It's a joke. And you know what? I'll give all the props to Moolah, and I think you would as well. But next to Moolah, there's no other woman more deserving of that Hall of Fame than you. Period. End of sentence. And the fact that you're not in there, all it does is lose its credibility, and it's an absolute joke. That's the way I feel.
Well, gee, thanks for all of that. And okay, maybe, there's a reason there's a reason why it's not happening, and you just like everybody else, you're just going to have to let it go. And if that time comes, I'll think about it.
I'm not going to let it go, but I'm going to go on with the interview. You go to WCW now. Now you build the whole women's title there in WCW. You do exactly what you did at the WWF. They dropped the ball when you left. There wasn't a women's champion for another 3 years. Now you go to WCW. Now you get the movement started all over again for a second time. Now, let me ask you a question. In 1996, I think it was, you lost the championship match to Hakoda. Is that how you say it?
Hokuto Akita.
Yeah, okay. Then you disappeared for a couple of years, and then you came back to WCW in 1999. Where did you go during that time?
I have no idea.
There was like a little 2-year hiatus where you took a break, and then you showed up again in 99.
I think I was doing. Actually, I think I went back to Japan a few times, maybe a few independents. Maybe I was chilling. Maybe I just had another come to Jesus talking or an epiphany or something, or I don't know.
Well, now when you come back in 99, you surely make a mark for yourself. You become the first woman cruiserweight champion ever. Uh-oh, what's that face mean? Talk to me.
So when were you involved in the WCW? What year was that?
I believe I was there for that. I was in and out so much, like I can't really remember. I remember I was there when you were doing some stuff with Evan Courageous. I remember that.
So you weren't really involved with all the decision making in that?
No, I probably was. I probably was. What was your feeling about that?
So who was that? The committee? You were involved with the committee? Is that correct?
but it was. I can't remember. Like I said, I was in and out so much. But I mean, I was definitely involved in the creative at that point.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess that's probably why I was pissed off at you too at that point, not understanding our background with WWF and all. And I truly became smitten to you as far as your work. I love how you wrote about the, in the magazine and the WWF. I trusted you on some other personal issues, which we rectified, and thank you for that. And as far as when you came to WCW, I thought it was the greatest thing when you came in. I thought, this is going to be great. He's finally going to utilize me well. And then when I was there, I was intermittently probably used and then scarcely used. And that's when you came in. So I felt, well, just what the hell, Russo? You're all freaking high in your own damn world. And I was totally pushed aside again by the new generation of women that were coming in. And I saw what was happening there. And I noticed the first or two women that were coming in got double the contract that I was making and was not wrestling. And I figured that the person in charge or involved, you and whoever else, knew about all of this. And I figured, how could he would he feel that this is worth this? And what is he trying to do and create? Did I piss somebody off? Did I say something? These are all the things that are going through my head. And it's probably a big reason too. Another part is why I become jaded so much in the business that, one, I was always ahead of myself in the business, 3, 4, 5, 10 steps, recreating myself. I had to be, because no one else was looking out for me or tried to do the best, what was in the best of her, best interest. And to wrestle guys, okay, first time, great. Again, made history. Woohoo! It was great. I liked the angle because I got along with Evan. We never had our own off-screen affair, just on screen. And he was so easy to work with. If it wasn't for Evan to make it so simple and great, it probably wouldn't have worked as well as it did. I felt though, every time I started getting over, that I was shut down, and I was. And I knew that it wasn't because of my lack of ability. It was the lack of ability I was not doing.
First of all, here's a couple things.
And I'm talking about extracurricular activity to get that extra big amount of contract.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. First of all, it boggles my mind, okay, how I so many times find out like stories like this, like what's going through a wrestler's mind, what a wrestler is thinking. So many times when I find stuff like this out after the fact, and like
I did how people thought about me. I thought, well, hell, 20-something years later, you really thought that way about me, and like you're now living this, what I'm saying, and how I really thought. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
right. But my point.
Did you voice it then and get fired again because I had.
Yeah, you see, but that's the prop. See, can I tell you something? And don't take this the wrong way, because this runs rampant in wrestling. You know, there is, and I could say this from experience, and rightfully so. Okay, there's paranoia in every single freaking wrestler I've ever worked with. Everybody's worried about their spots and losing their spots and getting replaced and this, that, and the other thing. What you just explained to me, okay, was the total opposite from where I sat. Because where I sat, I mean, yes, you start working with the guys, you become a WCW Cruiserweight champion. Okay, do you know why? There's nobody for you to work with. There's no other Medusas out there. There's no other wrestlers out there up that are at your caliber. So yes, you start working with the guys. You even start working with Oklahoma. You're in a featured role. You're on TV. There's no other women out there at your level. So what do? We start bringing other women in. Now, first of all, and this is an absolute truth, in my 23 years in the wrestling business, I've had nothing to do with anybody's contract ever. I can't tell you what anybody ever got paid. I was never, ever a part of that. If anything, I would have told JJ or whoever, we need more girls. We need to bring girls in. They would go out and get the girls financially. I would know nothing about that. I never crossed that line. But the whole idea of it was, and again, this explains a lot back at that time, there weren't a lot of Medusas. I mean, you were best at what you did, and we had to find other things for you to do because there just weren't women up to your caliber. So what would we do? Honestly, since there aren't a lot of workers out there, the first thing you're going to do is find attractive women. Because again, keep in mind now, you got the whole Monday night thing. Everything is ratings. So now you're going to go out there and find attractive women and teach them how to wrestle, because people such as yourself are just not out there anymore.
Okay, you have that. Okay.
But go ahead. I mean,
okay, you have that. All right. I heard you. However, it doesn't explain. We had women. We had the Japanese, the Hokuto Akitas, the Minami Toyotas. We had all of them coming in and doing things. We had more women that we could have, that I kept telling them who they were, but they weren't bringing them in.
You didn't have, no, I think you're getting your times confused. This is not in 1999. I'm talking about 1999 when I was there. The Japanese women and the girls you're talking about was when you were there in like 95, 96. In 1999, they weren't there. And if they were there, I didn't know about them.
Well, Hokuto Akita, you just asked me about her. She's the one I was wrestling as well. But there was other women. And so whatever. So it was just another part of my life, another, adversity, a stepping stone that I needed to overcome and figure out. So I was thinking about retiring. The whole thing, I could see the writing on the wall. There was other women coming in that were getting double the contract that I was getting. That was something I could not I just didn't want to be a part of that type of stuff. So again, finding my place, I started going to the power plant and training women and doing this and doing that. And I was content. I was happy with that. Then I got an inside tip that Vince may be buying WCW at the time. And I thought, oh, hell, I better, now's my time to retire, because if I'm still here, he may own everything. And that means he'll own the name Medusa. Oh my God. That's the first thing I thought. I don't want to lose the name Medusa again. So I wanted to retire. And they said, well, we need to think of a retirement match. And that was with Sonny. Remember Sonny Ono and Hokuto Akita, stuff like that, that time. So we were coming up with stuff like that. And I think that was it. And then, not even going with this whole new transition of life, I get a call from Monster Jam asking me if I want to drive monster trucks. And out of the blue, there I was. And I made the transition from wrestling to monster trucks.
How did you feel? How did you feel, like, again, knowing how you came up in the business? We went way back, starting with Sherry Martel, working with Moolah, going to Japan, the whole thing. Okay. Because I want to talk to you about this. How did you feel now when you're at the power plant and you're training girls? First of all, you train Molly Holly, which definitely is more, out of your mold. I mean, no question about that. I thought she was a phenomenal worker, probably one of the best last female workers. But now, how do you feel when you're training this new breed of women wrestler? And I know you were training Miss Hancock at the time, and I know you were training Tori Wilson at the time. How are you feeling about this?
I felt good, because it was also a calling for me. I was a good teacher. I wanted to help people. If women were interested in wanting to wrestle and better themselves, I was all for it. I was never against it. However, right away, having the women at the power plant, you could see which ones were and could and did and want to have it. The ones that were just there to look good, and those are the ones we weeded out and we ended up using and not using. Molly Holly was an exceptional, great wrestler. She was my favorite, and I thought she was one of the greatest lasts of wrestlers, as you said, that had it, that she still had the old school in her. She got it, and she did great in WWE and WWF. And she did great in WCW. And she was the last great thing in WWF at that time. Mm-hmm. Of all the women that could wrestle, she was the only thing up there really that could wrestle after I left. And in WCW as well. Training the other women, I knew right away that, the Stacy Keeblers, the Tories, Charmel was a natural. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Charmel was great. She could have been a great wrestler. She just didn't want to do it. And you can't force somebody. But she could take a bump if you asked her to. And you knew it would come across well. Terry and Stacy, hot-looking chicks. I mean, just really great women, but had no point of being in the ring except in bras and panties and mud. And that's in pro wrestling. And in life, that's them in pro wrestling. I mean, and out of life, they're just, beautiful women. I mean, you can't take that away from them. And you can't take the change in WCW and what was happening in that positioning and that what was going on. And you had to see what was happening. You couldn't ignore it, especially a woman from my stature and where I came from and what I've seen and done and heard. And this change, either I changed with it or I got out of it. And I didn't want to prance around in bras and panties. And that one time that I wrestled Oklahoma with that barbecue match, and I had all that sticky crap down my bra and whatnot, that was it. It was great. It was great. We had the most killing ratings, but it just, I wanted to beat the shit out of people, and send a message. And I was real. I was real, and wanted to look good at the same time, but at that time things weren't adapting that way. So I had to change myself without getting angry, without holding a grudge and being pissed off at the world or feel like wrestling owed me anything. That's another thing. You know, wrestling doesn't owe me anything. They were all my choices. And I am just very fortunate, very lucky, and very blessed and happy that I experienced the 18 years that I did. Because you hear the thing or the saying that it makes you who you are. I think it's kind of a cliche. However, things do happen, but it doesn't make you who you are. It's the choices that you choose to do with those things and go forward with it. And that's what I did.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. We just went through the history, and to me, it was evident. You know, you were always the one carrying the ball and carrying the banner. You seemed to be the sole woman keeping it going, keeping it going, keeping it going. I just laid everything out. You can see that in your history. Okay. All of a sudden there comes a time, okay, where now, you know, you're in the twilight of your career, you know, now you're training. Okay. Now you can no longer be that person to keep it going and keep it going and keep it going. I think at that time is when the focus was put on, there are no women coming to wrestling. We got to go get women and make them wrestlers. And I think you have a hard time with that. And I totally understand why, because of who you are and what you represented. However, if it didn't turn that way, right, where you know, you go out and you find hot chicks and then you train them, isn't it possible that we would have went into an era like we had many times before where there wasn't women wrestling at all? So I guess my question to you is would you have preferred to go through that and maybe sacrifice all of it rather than bring it back where novices had to be brought in that were good looking, that were sexy, and that had to learn how to wrestle? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes and no. Let me try to answer it. Would I give up everything? What do you mean by that? What?
No. What I'm saying is the way the way wrestling transitioned. Okay, if it didn't transition that way, women's wrestling really could have hit a dead end, and who knows what would have happened. Would you rather that have happened than the state that it's in today?
Oh, I understand. To back up, that's where I was saying that as I noticed a change happening, and I saw what was evolving, good or bad, however, what I thought, it was evolving to a different era. And I was part of that, and I've changed a lot within 18 years. Sometimes a person needs to recognize the fact when that time and change doesn't include you in that, or it's your choice not to. I would never, ever want women to ever stop being in the business. There's a place for them by their choice, what they accept to do. And that was not my choice. So one, with Vince taking over, didn't have any answers or didn't know if it would, you know, does that mean he's going to own my name? Does that go with him? I was scared to death. No, I didn't want to evolve in mud, panties, and bra. And so it was my time. And then out of the blue, the gift of God, I get a call to do a whole different career change. What is that? Where does that come from? Think about it. Well, who does that happen to? How does that happen? And if it wasn't for Mike Weber, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be where I'm at today in Monster Jam either. I never, ever forget the people that have given me the opportunity and opened up doors for me. And I feel that people today It's a lost art. They do forget. They don't know. They don't remember. And again, no one needs a drum roll. However, it has brought women where they are today. If it wasn't for me, if it wasn't for Moolah, if it wasn't before that, I mean, if it wasn't for Moolah, I wouldn't have had the opportunity. If it wasn't for Sherry, I wouldn't have had the opportunity. And it keeps going. But I would never have ever liked to have had the women's division in any federation completely stopped again because of it evolving and changing into this model type role with cat fights. And people had to adjust. Fans had to adjust, and they did not like it. They were used to this, but it was just re-educating them again. And I thought, as I saw, and years change, and that's the way it is. And that, you know, I go on rants today about stuff on Twitter about certain girls now and stuff. I'm only having fun. Probably 90% of the girls I haven't met or seen or, you know, in person. But I think every single one is talented. I think everybody has a reason or a purpose, whatever their own reason and purpose is. And hopefully it's for the right reasons. And I think everyone deserves a chance.
Who have you seen, who in your opinion, since you've been out of the business, who has carried on in your tradition? Who would be some of the girls that you would consider, yeah, I mean, you know, not that she reminds me a lot of myself, but she definitely has the same makeup that I did?
Well, excuse me if I don't pronounce the names correctly or if I don't know them, but I probably could describe them. Beth Phoenix. Oh my gosh. What a handful of talent. Amazing woman. And Natalia. And there was another one there. Oh, the brunette. Now, Mickey James had possibilities. And Victoria, oh my God.
Oh, she's great.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Daphne in WCW having such an odd and different character that I thought, now here's a woman somebody should take and grab by the hand and mold and make millions off of. This woman with her character of her own, and I always loved Daphne and her freaking character, as weird as it was. And who else? Gosh, there's a couple more.
What did you think about China?
Do you know that I've never met her? Never met Joni. And there's a few things I'd like to say that I do say in my book. However, I will say this. You know, I wasn't there during that whole era with her and that time and the things that I hear that did happen to her. I don't know. I can't go by what other people say. If I ever wanted to know the truth, I'd have to ask her. But from just what I hear, I didn't like what I saw. I think she got a bad rap. I don't think it was fair what was happening or what happened to her. I was crushed. I never even met her and I felt sad. Yeah. I was pissed off, actually. I knew what she went through, not because I had a relationship with Triple H, but I knew what she was going through.
Yeah.
I related that way. And there's times I felt so bad. Never met the woman, but I did read some things about her. I don't know again what's true and what's not. And I hear that she's highly intelligent and she carries herself well when she does have an interview at times, and she comes across and speaks eloquently. And I think her time there was fabulous. She had a great run, my God. And the people that she was with carried it well for the time that she had.
Yeah, you'd love her. I mean, the nicest, caring person in the world. Absolutely.
I wish I got to, meet her. And there's a few I wish I would have. And, our paths always ships in the night. And so, yeah.
Did you ever think...
wait, no, I got the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to give you an example. you heard the whole dissertation, or basically the story that I just said about Joni and never meeting her and how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a big heart for her.
Mm-hmm.
But however, I did read in her book that all these things about me as a person, very bad things.
Mm.
And when I read that, I just, again, shook it off and said, why? You know, what was this person told? And why does a person take what other people say and then write things without just calling me and say, hey?
Wow.
You know?
Well, one thing that has a lot to do with that is when the book is published by the WWE. I mean, that's the truth. You know what I mean? Let me ask you this. How important did you think character was in the wrestling business for you?
How important was my character?
No, just in general, you being Medusa, you being Alundra Blayze, did you think the character was important, or like what was your philosophy like 90% my in-ring work, and did that change over the years? I want to know where your head was at as far as, you know, in-ring talent and character, the combination of the two.
That's a great question. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I think my thinking was at that time, back in the 90s, is that it was my in-ring. Mm-hmm. You know, what was my character as Alundra Blayze? I was the one, they loved me, but yet I was still the love to hate when I wasn't wrestling Japanese girls. And I really didn't have a character per se. I think I really didn't. I was just there. I was just there.
Let me, Monster Trucks real quickly. You go over to Monster Trucks, you become a champion there. I think you were the first women champion, some kind of World Series of, explain that to me. Because I know you were I know once there was like a three-way tie, right? You were a co-champion, but then you became the champion.
When I received my call to go drive Monster Trucks, again, it was like reliving wrestling. Hey, Deuce, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. Well, we were wondering if you wanted to drive a monster truck. I said, excuse me? Monster truck? I've never seen one, never even heard of one. I've never even been to one. Why? They go, well, we know you're kind of a gearhead. You ride Harleys, dirt bikes, four-wheelers. Would you be interested in driving one? I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. They drove me out to Kill Devil Hills. That's Dennis Anderson. He drives Gravedigger. I tested with him. It was great. It was like brother and sister. He was doing the sign language. I was in the truck. I'd listen through the earpiece and did what he said. I would jump a car and jumped a van, car stack, landed in a pond, upside down, wah, 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 throttled out, land. And I'm looking and I see all the executives standing there. I get out and I'm like, whoa, that was flipping awesome, dude, man. 1,500 horsepower underneath my ass. Yeah. And I'm like, God, this is cool. And they're like, have you ever driven? I'm like, no, sir. They go, you're hired. I was like, shit. Now what am I going to do? I was thinking about retiring from wrestling. So, dude, I was wrestling. I was racing, all in for a year or two, and I was loving it. So that's when I helped me make my decision that leaving wrestling and went to Monster Jam. And so my very next weekend, I was entertaining 60,000 people in my truck. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. Again, going back into wrestling. But what I had on my side this time is that I had the experience of wrestling. And boy, when I grabbed that mic that first time 15 years ago, I was like, da-da-da-da-da-da. I was doing Medusa, this and that. And I think everybody in the Monster Jam world and the detectives were going, oh my God, where did you get this woman? And I'm cutting a promo like I was in wrestling or something. And here's all these kids, what is this? And and they're like, Deuce, can you tone down? I'm like, I'm sorry. I was just, excited cutting a promo. Then they realized it's putting asses in the seats. And they said, keep it up. Keep it up. And so we did the red, white, and blue, MAD USA, made in the USA, the monster truck. And fast forward to 2004, I won my freestyle first time championship, first time woman, first time freestyle, beat everybody. And oh my God. Then it was on. I finally got respect from the guys. I didn't get respect before that. They would sabotage my truck. They would flatten my tires. They put baby powder in my seat. Just like wrestling, they'd throw all these ribs, but they didn't know what the word ribbed mean. And they really didn't understand where I came from either. So I reciprocated. Mm-hmm. And I did some great little ribs to them as well. So the next year I got serious, and I'm a big envisionist. I picture something happening and doing, and to set a goal, and I did just that. I pictured myself winning the racing championship in Las Vegas, which we have every year. And I was like, God, if I win, I can do this, I can do that. Well, I won. I won. My teacher, Dennis Anderson, the gravedigger, at World Finals. And the only thing I remember, I don't know if you're a racing person, but maybe there's some people out there that is. This is a quick little short story, and this is one thing that I'll take with me, just like one big thing that I did in wrestling, and that is, there we are. We have it was like 18 trucks, and all the way down to 2, and it was Dennis and I. And all I hear in the truck is going, and I'm sitting there staring at that red light, getting ready to go, and all I hear is this, oh my gosh, can you believe it, fans? It's man against woman. And I'm like, oh, hell, hurry up. It's man against woman. Oh, it's Chevy against Ford. I'm a Ford girl, by the way. And, oh, it's teacher against student. And I'm like, for Christ's sake, you just shut up and let me go. And all of a sudden, whapa, and there goes the light. And I freaking hit it, go down to the chicane. And, man, I beat him in racing. And I had a friend there, this whole thing, and I'm just going to skim over this because this part's in my book. I had a friend in the suites at that time that I won the championship, and there was a bunch of the executives sitting there. And I'll never forget, after that, my friend came to me after the big party and everything, and my friend said to me, God, Deuce, I need to tell you something. I said, what, are you okay? Oh, well, it probably doesn't mean anything, but I just wanted to let you know something. And I said, well, what's that? I can handle anything. Well, I just want to let you know I was up in the suites, but I don't think they realized that I was there and who I was there for. I said, well, what? I was starting to get worried. And they said, well, when you won the championship, I noticed all the guys that you said that the executives, one of them yelled, said, now what are we going to frickin' do? It's a woman won. Oh, shit. And there you go. That's, oh God, we had a woman win, in a man's world again, in a man-dominated sport. I mean, really, Vinny, what the hell have I been thinking? If you add them both up, 18 and 15 so far.
I got to ask you.
I love it, though.
I got to ask you this based on what you told me, because first of all, like, I really do hope, you got to listen to me. You got to come out with this book. You've been talking to me about this book since 1995. You got to come out with this book, because nobody, forget about career, nobody's had the life, that you've had. It's freaking fascinating. I got to ask you this, whether it's in your book or not, you got to tell me. All the BS, you went through in a male-dominated wrestling sport, a male-dominated monster truck, obviously. Have you ever hauled off and just cracked a guy straight in the mouth? Don't tell me it's in the book. Have you ever just have you ever just really cracked somebody?
I envision it all the time, maybe still to this day. I probably have, but you're gonna have to read the book.
Well, I hope it comes out. What are your plans for that?
My plans are to, there's been a couple opportunities to publish it. And again, it hasn't, and for good reason. And I think now it's coming to a good head to where it's due. When it feels right, I'm going to, and it's probably going to be sooner than later. I'm positioning myself now that, you know, I am 50 and I'm in great shape. I love what I do. I do have a woman crew chief, by the way. We're an all-women's team with my truck. I started a hashtag. It's hashtag Hot Crew Chief Lindsay, by the way. And we work really well together. And thanks to her, my crew, and a new truck, all of my safety equipment, that I haven't gotten hurt at all this year. And that has made me go on to sign another contract. And that makes me happy when you don't get hurt. I also am positioning myself to do other things. I've always been into nutrition and health. And remember the part where I said the men in wrestling are the most narcissistic. I remember walking with Macho and myself and that whole little thing, you know, that little skit that I was in. I remember walking through the airport and you could see in the glass windows, you could see yourself in silhouette. I never had to stop so many times so the guy could look at himself to make sure he looked fine. I'm thinking, hell, I'm a freaking woman and I don't even look in the mirror that much. So again, you know, but so anyway, to fast forward, that the other things that I'm doing is being fit, nutrition. I'm a personal trainer. I'm getting my yoga instructor certification. So I'm putting it all together. I'm going to put it to good use. And to put the frosting on the cake, I am finishing up my doctorate in naturopathy. So I'll be a doctorate in naturopathy.
You also should look into, and I mean, you and I spoke about this, gosh, it's probably a couple of years ago by now. I'm telling you, man, you know there are reality shows for everything, and everything's been done. Man, how do you guys not do a reality show in the monster truck world? Especially your position and where you are. Now you got a female crew chief. How is that not done? Why don't you do that?
I believe our company has been looking at several opportunities. I don't want to speak because there are a few things that are happening and always do happen, but you never know with them. You don't know what comes into fruition. Something starts happening and it falls or fails. So if it does, great. If it doesn't, no. Have I been approached? Oh my gosh, Ben, I have been approached so much and so many times, but it's not what I want to do maybe at that time. Maybe it's not how I wanted to be portrayed. I'm a very serious person, and I think I'd like to handpick the reality show that I'd like to be in and what to, how to represent it. Survivor. Oh my gosh, I was asked to do Survivor twice. And the first time was like 15 years ago. And right when I started Monster Jam, and Monster Jam was behind me 100%. And I was just so excited because Survivor, that's me. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I was ready to kick ass. And I could have done it. I could have done it. Their contract was about that thick. Yeah. And they realized who I am and who I was and what I did. But back then, it was really hard to let their people do the things that they wanted to do. So let's just say this, at that time, I couldn't be on TV if I were going to be under contract. But for me to be on TV, that was my way of living with monster trucks. So we did all of this stuff that I had to do for Survivor, and I can't tell you some of the secrecy stuff that to get picked. And when we got down to the nuts and bolts to finish it, they realized that I was on TV and I had to choose. Mm. So I had to pass up Survivor, which kind of sucked. But
that would have been tremendous.
Oh, I know, right? And again, I could have been another huge sensation for what? For a short time, did this, did that. Who knows? Who knows? I was comfortable and happy what I was, where I was at and what I was doing. And the longevity of my career with monster trucks were better at that time. And the people are good to me. They're really good people. And Feld Entertainment is a great family-oriented sport entertainment. Kenneth Feld owns Barnum and Bailey Circus. He owns Disney on Ice. He owns Monster Jam. Et cetera, et cetera. So it's a huge organization. And Kenneth and Vince do know each other, which is, it's kind of funny. Kenneth Feld and I were talking, and it's funny how we know the same people.
How actively do you race nowadays?
Oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to go to Australia here in a couple weeks. I'll be gone for 6 weeks, and then I go to New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm a big I'm a big scuba diver enthusiast, so I'm going to go dive with the sharks when I'm there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten hurt badly doing that?
I get hurt every weekend. I get hurt more in the monster truck than I did wrestling. I mean, I have a 10,000-pound machine, 15
Jeez.
10, 15, I mean, 15 to 1800 horsepower. And oh my God, I mean, like, dude, I'm like a dude with balls in it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
That's crazy.
adrenaline level is just like, I mean, first woman ever to do a backflip in a monster truck. And it's crazy, insane. And every year, of course, I try to outdo myself, improve myself. And I don't see myself retiring too soon, but I'm sure I'm going to here. So I don't know. There's a lot of good things in the works, and you never say never on anything in life. And the doors are always open. And I'm very grateful. You know what? The best thing that happened in my life, though, is I married my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I met a great man, and he's a sergeant major in the Army for 27 years.
Wow.
And it works between us. And he's getting ready to deploy October 2nd for a whole year. And it's amazing how we complement each other. And finally, I have found that calming in life that makes everything worth it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to tell you, I can talk to you all day, and you know that. But listen, anybody that knows you and knows what your contributions were and know what you did for women's wrestling, it is important to me that you understand how appreciated you are. And anybody that knows anything about wrestling and women's wrestling and what you did for it, they know the hand you have, and they know how responsible you are for it. And nobody can ever take that away. A lot of the girls today don't know because they're younger and they're not wrestling.
And another thing, a lot of women today too, they believe what they're told by some brainwashed things that maybe those people were told some things that got misconstrued and whatnot. So I can't even be angry or be mad at them. It's just, it's, if anybody wants to know, they can call me.
Well, those that know. And I mean, I want you to know I was there. I got, we had a couple of years together. Well, a little bit, maybe about 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we had time together. So like I got to see it firsthand. And I got to tell you, this is a shoot with me. There's nothing I love more than a strong-willed woman. And I say that because I know in wrestling, I know it was very sexist. I know when I was there, it was very, very difficult on women. I always say, and I feel so bad about this too, but I always say what professional wrestling did to Joni's life, to me is an absolute tragedy. I mean, just a tragedy. And like I saw it firsthand. And to be a strong-willed woman in the wrestling business, I can honestly say the two that I probably know are you and China. I mean, that really stood up for yourself, had a presence. Nobody screwed with you. You were very proud of who you were. You stood tall and you didn't take anything. And that's so few and far between in wrestling that when somebody like you comes along, it's never, ever forgotten. And I mean, I hope you know and realize and understand that.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure Joni thanks you as well. I think she probably will go into the Hall of Fame. I think it would be a good time right now. I think it would be very manly and for Triple H just to say, that was then, this is business, it's good for business, we held no grudge type of format to get her in during this era attitude.
Well, yeah, and it's also time for Vince McMahon to say the same thing about you. No? I'll say it. I'll say it for you, for crying out loud. This is the woman that started the Attitude Era, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, according to Vince Russo.
How many millions of dollars did you put in his pocket?
I don't know, but I still want to say I still get some great checks from there. So
There you go. Holy, well, that says a lot. 15 years later, you can't complain about that.
you know, right? I
Well,
think.
listen, and it's been great. I hope to have you on again because I mean I could talk to you all day long.
Mm, yeah. So hopefully the next interview that I do, it'll be
book.
after my book, or maybe
Yes.
a little bit before.
Yeah. If you need any help, let me know. You know, I'd love to look at sample chapters, anything.
You know, in a closing statement, I I probably have a list from here to Japan of people that I would thank for my career, including yourself. And I want to put all of that into that book. And there's one last thing that I want to do after that book is that my goal is to make it a movie.
Oh wow.
Not,
And of course you're going to play yourself.
oh hell no.
You might as well add movie star to that list. No, I mean why not?
No.
Are you kidding me? Come on.
No, not now, but no.
That would be tremendous. I mean, seriously. I mean, you
Have
know.
you ever seen the movie Heart Like a Wheel?
Yes.
Now you know where I'm going with
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah. No, nobody can tell the story you can. There's no question about that.
Thanks,
But
Vince.
thank you. It was great talking to you, and good luck with the book, and make sure it happens.
I will.
All right. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. All
Okay.
right. See ya.
Bye.